Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Overcoming Graduation with Brian Drury. So today I'm going to be introducing you to Jon Bowes, who at the tender age of 23 years old has accomplished more in his short time on this planet than many will in their entire lives. You're going to hear Jon share a story of how he left a successful sales job, dropped everything, bought a one-way ticket to Peru, why he did that, and then how that took him on a journey to become a freelancer and copywriter who is location independent. He's lived all over the world. He does his work from a laptop, and he makes damn good money doing it. So in today's interview, Jon is going to share his story of how he created this location independent entrepreneurial business and how you can do it too. You'll hear the main reason why Jon walked away from his job in sales and why he bought that one-way ticket to Peru and why he recommends everyone should do the same thing. You'll hear what he learned from taking the strongest hallucinogenic drug in the world and why he says everyone should take drugs, especially entrepreneurs. You'll hear how Jon was featured as the starring role of a feature-length film at just 13 years old. Jon is going to teach you today and help us all learn about how to hack the mind and use strategies like the open loop, which Jon will explain in today's interview, to capture listeners' or readers' attention. You'll also learn how a list of the top 10 easiest college majors helped Jon pick his college major. And then another very interesting and insightful point is why people actually will buy your products. So whether you're an entrepreneur, a small business owner, or you're in a large corporation, learning why people actually are buying and not why they think they're buying could be a game changer for you. And the final key point is that Jon is going to share his secret for success and what he's done to achieve so much at such a young age and so much more. So everything, as always, is linked in the show notes. You'll see links to Jon's fantastic blog. You'll get to read his copy and see how he's really mastering this skill. You'll get to see some examples of articles and blog posts that he's written in the past, as well as his the link to his starring movie role. You'll see his book recommendations, resource recommendations, documentary recommendations, and how you can get in touch with Jon. He also makes a really fantastic offer in this interview to anyone who's listening and sends him an email. He's going to send you something very special, but I'm not going to give away what that is just yet. So guys, this interview was super fun. It is the longest interview to date on Overcoming Graduation, but that's just because we were having such a good time with this. There is so much useful information packed into it, and I didn't want it to stop. So part of the beauty of having your own show is you get to pick how things go. So everyone, I won't hold this for any longer. Without any further ado, please let me introduce you to Jon Bowes. Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Overcoming Graduation with Brian Drury. So today my guest is a person who is the first person ever that I'm interviewing that is in my target demographic and is doing what I don't think many of you are going to believe how amazing the things are that this guy has done. I was reading through his about section and really it blows my mind. It's not just about the financial success, which he definitely has, the exploration, the amazing life that he's lived and the things that he's done already at 23 years old. So for all of you guys that have been listening to the show that are in this age group and trying to find your way, we have a doozy for you today because my guest is Jon Bowes. So Jon, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
Absolutely, man. I mean, when Simon put me in touch with you, I was like, oh my goodness, I read your story, I got into more of it, and I was like, we gotta talk. This is gonna be awesome. So I am very excited to hear this story from your perspective because I've done several interviews where you read the about section and you get a good feel, but there is so much more that goes on in a person's life. So I know that your story and the path that you've led has been greatly influenced by more than just college and graduation and your time at that age. So can we start off just a bit earlier, and could you tell the audience a bit about your life, and we'll start with that homeschooling in high school because that seems to be a good kickoff point.
Sounds good, man. Yeah, that was definitely one of the things that influenced my life incredibly, was being homeschooled from, when I was born all the way through till high school, except for a couple years when I went to a tiny little Christian school in Canada. Mm-hmm. And so I actually grew up on a farm, and then I went to high school But the summer before I went to high school, my parents, who were also kind of visionaries, kind of crazy, some would say, some might say inspirational. I would just say they're Bowses. I mean, that's what we do. They decided that it was a good idea to make a full-length feature film. So they basically found a cinematographer, found a director, found a whole crew, cast and crew, spent a whole bunch of money making this movie. And my mom actually wrote the script, and then I had to audition. So I auditioned for the director and the cinematographer, and I got the lead role, which was like big surprise, right? The son of the producers gets the lead role. So
it's all about who you know, John.
Yeah, exactly. So that was a really cool experience. It was, it took a couple years for it to get all edited and put together. And then a few years after that, basically we released it first with our own design, our own everything. And it didn't really do anything. It just kind of sat there. So my dad, a couple years ago, actually, he contacted a company that basically repackages movies like this and puts a different cover on them and kind of resells them. And so this movie ended up getting picked up by Walmart, and Walmart bought 30,000 copies of it. And so they put a cover on it that has nothing to do with the actual movie. Like, the movie is starring me, this 13-year-old chubby kid with braces who sings in a boy soprano voice. And on the front cover of the movie, they put a dad and a mom and a little girl with blonde pigtails, and then a golden retriever holding hands and looking out over a cornfield with a big red barn. Our barn on the farm was green, and there was no little girl with pigtails. And they changed the name of the movie from 1,000 Hills, which was an unfortunate name. It was the name of our farm, but it wasn't very creative. And they changed it to God Save Our Farm. And actually, if you look on Amazon right now, maybe we can get this link too in the show notes too.
Absolutely.
If you go on Amazon right now, there are, last time I checked, 9 reviews for it, and 8 of them are giving it a 1-star review and saying this is the worst movie ever made. This movie should not be in existence, and people are just so confused, and they're saying the cover has nothing to do with the movie. I don't understand. So I'm kind of hoping that maybe it'll, become some sort of cult phenomenon or something if I get famous, and then I don't know.
Well, that's I can safely say in all my interviews I've never heard that. So Walmart picking up the movie and giving it a cover that has nothing to do with that. That's a unique marketing strategy, to say the least, for them to take that stress. So
absolutely.
And how old were you when this happened?
I was 13. Basically, I turned 13 during the end filming of the movie, so I was 12/13. Yeah.
Okay, so already a movie star at 13, and
right.
Check
that off the list.
Babes and Lamborghinis left and right. I mean, it's pretty much hit it at that point. And all right, so what came next after your movie star debut on God Save Our Farm and the mystery little girl? I could just see the people where was the little girl on the cover? What was that for?
Oh my God, they were so confused. Some of the comments are like, it doesn't even show if they saved the farm or not. Yeah, there's just so many. So what I practice now is marketing. I'm a copywriter, and one of the things that's a technique in copywriting is it's called an open loop. So it's when you open something up, you say, okay, so I'm about to reveal to you the top 3 ways that you can earn $1 million today sitting at home eating bananas in your underwear. But we'll get to that in a minute. First, I want to tell you this story.
Okay. No, wait, but about that first thing, I see what you're talking about.
Exactly. And you can build it up so much. You tell a whole story, and right as you're about to get to the climax, then you just say, actually, I'll tell you the rest of that in a minute. But first, and it hacks people's brains so it keeps them reading, right? But what we did with the movie was we opened up a lot of loops and then we never closed them. And that's the most frustrating thing in the world, because you're like, wait, what happens to his sister and that talent agent? What? I don't get it. Did they save the farm? I don't even understand the point of this movie. So ironically, there's a lot of marketing lessons to be learned from being in this movie and then kind of seeing what happened to it later on.
Well, it reminds me of those books that you had as a kid where it was make your own ending, but in this movie it was like make all your own endings for all of the stories for all the characters, and you can build your own story. That's again a unique marketing ploy.
Exactly. So anyways, after this I go to high school, and keep in mind I'm this chubby little kid with braces, right? I used to wear sarcastic t-shirts that said like funny things, and then I'd wear a short-sleeved button-up shirt undone over that. The only thing missing was a fedora, and I would have been your classic, little nerdy kid who didn't understand the world. But I thought I was pretty cool because I had just been in a movie, right?
Right.
So I went to high school, and I quickly found out that people didn't actually think I was pretty cool, but they were definitely willing to go along with it and pretend that they did, so that I could kind of be someone they could laugh at.
Oh, jeez.
So I really learned to laugh at myself. It was a tough experience at the time, because at first I was like, oh yeah, I'm so cool, and then I was like, oh yeah, everyone else thinks I'm really cool too. And then after a little while I was like, wait, they're not being serious, they're joking. And that was kind of a shocking realization. I was like, wait a minute, they're like making fun of me. They're not just being cool. What the hell?
Yeah, the realization that, well, I mean, John, it's like, hate to brag, but when I was in high school, I was skinny with bad skin, couldn't talk to girls for the life of me. And I think I didn't start wearing jeans until I think 8th grade or freshman year. So I wore sweatpants nonstop. So, me and you both were obviously just killing it with the ladies and just, beating them off with a stick. It's
Ballin'.
No, wait, John, where are you from in Canada?
Oh, so I'm from right near Toronto, a sleepy little town called Uxbridge.
Okay. My mom's from Edmonton, Alberta originally. So I've been to Canada. For the first 21 years of my life, I went up to Canada every year to Portland, Ontario. So most of my mom's side of the family's from Toronto. So I hear the Canadian accent come through here and there.
Very cool. I was actually just in Edmonton a few weeks ago at beginning of July for one of my best friend from high school's weddings.
Awesome.
It was a really cool experience, actually. This is kind of just an opportunity really quickly to talk about this lifestyle that I'm after and that you're after. And so what I did was, me and my girlfriend, we drove up there, and then after the wedding, we just took some time and we went camping in Banff. And while I was in Banff, since I still had my laptop and we could get internet once a day, then I was still working the entire time I was there. And then we drove back, we camped in Montana, and then we went to Colorado. And the entire time I was just still doing work. I was still taking my time to write, and I was still earning money, but I was just doing whatever I wanted. And the Colorado trip was on a whim. We were just driving along, and then she was just like, do you want to go to Colorado? And I was like, yeah, sure, I've never been. So we just popped over there for a bit. But that's the lifestyle that I think that is kind of the new, as Tim Ferriss puts it, the new rich. It's right. It's the new thing that everyone aims for. And it's let me ask you, John, were you stressed about work and thinking about deadlines and just stressed out of your mind during all of that and worrying about what your boss would think, which you don't have a boss? Well, yes.
Okay, all right, okay.
I was stressed and I was worried about deadlines. I had a couple big projects coming up, and it's funny when you're an entrepreneur, you get to choose your own hours, but it's kind of unfortunate because at first you have to choose to work, 60 to 70 hours a week, because that's just, it's not necessarily soul sucking work where you're sitting at a freaking cubicle and, pushing a button all day and just oh my God, I can't wait to go home and take off these stupid shoes type of work. But it's you take more pride in it. So you put a lot of pressure on yourself to hold yourself to a higher level and to really deliver for your clients. Because if you want to have a successful business that you're the boss of, then you have to put your client satisfaction at number one. And you have to be willing to go the extra mile and deliver on time and do what you say you will do. So yeah, I still was a little stressed out. I had some things going on,
And I'll say that's one of the biggest misconceptions I think that I had before starting my own business, and that many young adults have, is that you hear entrepreneur, you hear startup, and it all sounds really sexy and new, and it's like you create, you're your own boss, you set your own hours, and it's like, and yes, all of those things are benefits, but to your point, very often those benefits are not necessarily, working the 4-hour work week like Tim Ferriss. Like you said, sometimes it's a 60, 70-hour work week, and it's work you love, but you're so deeply invested. And because for you, like in your case, it is Jon who's on the line. It is you are your brand, and your delivery is so much more key. It's not like at a corporate job where necessarily other people could come in and your work wasn't that great, but it didn't look that bad because other people picked up the slack. It's like it's totally on you. So I'm glad you shared that, because it's like me saying like, all right, it's assuming that it's all going to be butterflies and rainbows. Once you're in the entrepreneurial world, there are a ton of benefits. There are a ton of wonderful things that come from it, but it doesn't come without challenges and hard work. So I appreciate you being honest there and being real. So now let's dive back into the story. So you were the chubby kid in high school, braces, rocking the button-up shirt, short-sleeve button-up shirt over the sarcastic T-shirts. Thought you were cool. Found out that the kids were taking advantage of and making some jokes. And so, what came next in your life? What was the next kind of critical step in the development?
Well, like anyone who had that wonderful of an experience in high school, I wanted to get the hell away from there. So I went to school as far as I could pretty much go. Actually, it's kind of a funny story. I was in Tallahassee, Florida for a film festival for the movie. Mm-hmm. And me and my mom were hanging out with this guy, and he was like a multi-millionaire or billionaire dude. And him and his wife were like taking us around Tallahassee. I don't even remember why, but we drove past Florida State University, and he said, that's Florida State University. And it was a big, beautiful school, the huge stadium there, and all those red brick and the Spanish moss hanging from the trees, just gorgeous campus. And he said, the most beautiful women in the Southeast go there.
Sold.
Yeah, so I went there. And I got as far away from Canada as possible. And so that went pretty well. My first year, I didn't really know what I was doing, so I kind of bounced around. I was political science, I was international affairs, I did this, I did that, I did whatever. And then one day I was reading online, and I think this is actually kind of embarrassing, but this kind of shows you the mindset that I was in at that time. I Googled easiest college majors, and I found this list of like the 12, it's like pre-BuzzFeed, but it was like 13 of the easiest college majors. Mm-hmm. And so I started reading it, and then it came to like philosophy, and it said with philosophy, you sit in a room, take some drugs, decide nothing exists, then go out for lunch. And I said, I'm sold.
Wow. They've checked all the boxes.
Yeah, so I switched my major to philosophy, and over the next 4 years, well, 4.5 years, 5 years, 5 years, let's be honest, 5 years. Over the next 5 years, I proceeded to do pretty much exactly that with a couple embellishments. Mm-hmm. But
and dude, it's funny because you're like, all right, well, it's embarrassing to admit, but I just graduated from school 3 years ago, and if I think back on it, it's like it's not that long of a stretch. It's like most of the people, when you're picking classes, and even when you're picking a major, it's not like what's going to challenge me the most and help me grow and really make me think outside the box. It's like people are trying to pick the teacher that doesn't give exams and is really like free thinking, and oh yeah, he gives you 10 tries on each quiz. Like people will tell me, oh, take that one. Like there was one class I took in college, you got 10 tries on every quiz, and only your highest grade counted, and they gave you the answers after the first quiz. So it was like you literally had to not want to get 100 in order to get it. And it's so funny when you hear people saying like, oh, I'm thinking about not going to college, and people flip out and freak out. And I'm like, I got a lot of benefit from college, but it was more from the people I met and the networks I created and, the things I learned about myself. It wasn't about the content and the actual study. So it's interesting doing this show because just like your story, the growth, the development didn't come from taking the right college classes, picking the right major, and, getting into it was like, it's about that self-education and that growing in the way that you want to. not in the way that the college curriculum told you to. So I got to share this because I loved it when I was reading this. So for all the listeners, when you go to, John's site is adventupreneur.com, so think entrepreneur, but with adventure at the beginning. And in his about section, he says, when I got to university, I decided to study philosophy because I wanted to make getting a job as difficult as possible after graduation. So, and that's just one of the gems through this because, John, you have a really funny, really like awesome way of writing, so I was really enjoying reading that. But anywho, so you study philosophy, and you went through. You followed the written description, took all the steps. So, then what came next?
So I did a lot during university. So I don't want to kind of give the impression that I did just sit around and do nothing. Because philosophy is actually a very wonderful study. Because everything is at its very core comes down to a certain type of philosophy. So classes like philosophy of science, reasoning and critical thinking, knowledge and belief, these totally impacted the way that I looked at my very thoughts themselves, which is something that a lot of people never do. They just arrive at these beliefs and they say, I don't know how I got it, but it's there, and that's what I believe. So don't try and change my beliefs. But, Aristotle said it's the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. And I really think that that's something that has influenced me and impacted me a lot in just learning about different aspects of business, of life, of relationships, of love, of whatever, of food. It's just to be able to take something and say, okay, how does this stack up? Then you throw in the scientific part and you say, okay, so like, are there any controls on this? Like, what were the testing circumstances? What is the specific variable that we're testing here? And it gives you a much more precise and accurate viewpoint of life, because there's a lot of bullshit out there that people are just, this is the way to do it, but no, you're full of shit.
Oh, dude, I mean, I love that you brought that up, because that brings up another important point. Because when I talk to a lot of kids who are in school, or my friends, and it's like, man, I totally blew it. I picked the wrong major and I wasted my time. I wasted my money. And I'm a firm believer in, it's only a waste if you choose not to learn from it. If you choose not to find a lesson and decide it's a waste, it's a waste. But if you're willing to look for the lesson that's hidden in it, because sometimes you got to dig deep. I mean, from philosophy, sometimes there's a lot of self-reflection and deep digging that you have to do in order to really pull a lesson from something, and sometimes it takes time. But when it comes to college and school, I know so many people that don't work in the major that they actually selected, but there is so much that you can learn from it. And I think what you said is so key, because I didn't even realize until I started reading books on these topics and started meditating and started doing some internal work that I could challenge my beliefs. I could challenge my thoughts. There are things that I've accepted and believed my entire life that are just stories that I was either told or chose to accept. And when you start to look at your thoughts that way and your behavior patterns, like one thing is, I told myself for 25 years, I'm not a morning person. I can't get up early. So that's a deeply ingrained belief, but I'm working with a coach right now, and we've broken that, and I've been traveling all over the world and broken that, and it's been inconsistent, and I'm working on really creating that habit. But exactly like you said, once I became aware that I could challenge these thoughts, it completely drastically shifted how I looked at each day and every decision. And so can you give maybe, one or two other big insights you got from studying philosophy? Because one of the most profound things that I've found is by not accepting those limiting beliefs or limiting values, you're able to do amazing things that people don't believe are possible, just like you're doing in your life. So could you share maybe one or two other big lessons you got from studying philosophy?
Yeah, for sure. Well, one of the other types of philosophy that I really enjoyed was like political philosophy. And so I minored in economics, and I worked with the economics department for a little while on developing a social entrepreneurship class. And just understanding the way that economics works And it's more related to economics, which I guess you could technically say economics is more of a philosophy than a science, because a lot of it is just very pseudoscientific.
Yeah.
But there is part of it which is hard science, which is just very easily traceable and easily measurable. But just understanding how that worked really inspired me to be an entrepreneur, because I realized that entrepreneurs take on a disproportionate amount of risk. So if you get a job as an employee, you have a very perceived low amount of risk, right? You have a steady paycheck, you have a job security, you have benefits, you're in one place, etc. You work with the same people.
Right.
If you just throw all that to the wind and you sail off to do your own thing and follow your own course, then you have a lot of risk. And that's why 90% of small businesses fail within the first 5 years, and then 90% fail in the 5 years after that. So after our 90% of the survivors, so in the first 10 years, it's like 99% of businesses, it might be a little lower, I don't know the exact numbers, but it's over 90% fail. And so by taking on that risk as an entrepreneur, if you are able to be successful, then your reward will be far greater than if you had just kind of stayed the course and been an employee for your entire life. And that was another one of those stories that everyone's kind of told. Like, my dad at some point has, a couple different points, has encouraged me to kind of, but just, John, he said, when I was in Peru and he came and visited me there last year, he said, I'm glad you're not, because I was talking about going back, and I was like, we were talking about things, and he basically said, maybe you should just get a job for a while. And I was like, I knew I could get a very high-paying job because of my experience in college with sales. We'll get to that in a minute.
Yep.
There's a nice open loop for you.
He's doing it live, guys. It's happening right now.
It's crazy, man. You just start to internalize these things once you've studied them for a while, and you don't even realize that you're doing them. And there's a special technique you can use to do that, which we can talk about like at the very end of this. But
oh, that'd be great.
So, did you notice what I just did, though? Just open another loop.
See, I'm like, he's going to, like, convince me to, like, just go to Vegas by the end of this call, and I'm going to be there by the end of this call. But
oh, yeah. If I don't have your credit card by the end of this, then I've failed as my job as a salesman.
Okay, Brian, I bought your ticket. I'll have a limo there in an hour to pick you up, and see you soon, buddy. All right?
Golden. Anyway, so no, what I realized was that I wanted to be that. I wanted to take on that risk, and I wanted to taste the sting of failure. But more than that, I wanted to, drink from the sweet tea of success once I had finally found that strategy that works, because you've got this 95 to 99% failure rate, right? But then that 1% risk, the 1% chance that you can actually get it, like it kind of comes down to behavioral economics. Like, would you rather have a 1% chance at winning $1 million, or would you rather have a 75% chance of getting $100,000? And I, as much as I like to bet on sure things, I'm kind of I'm not a risk averse person. I'm very risk tolerant. I'm risk seeking. So I like the idea of, like 1% towards $1 million. And I also realized through philosophy that a lot of these great philosophers, a lot of these great writers, a lot of these great thinkers, they didn't have shit. They kind of like, they'd make a lot and then they'd lose it, and then they'd go up and they'd crash. And it's like those crashes were when some of the best work of humanity has come out. Like, it's the highest highs and the lowest lows, when people are really in pain and suffering and living like in a van and eating out of garbage cans because their business just crashed and they lost their mansion and their Mercedes and their Rolls Royce, and everyone's like, oh, you can't come to the country club anymore. So they go and they live in a freaking van. Like, that's kind of, I don't know, there's something romantic about that kind of appeals to me. I'm like, you know what? I kind of want to do that at some point. Like, that sounds like fun.
Well, yeah, and I think, like, what's beautiful about it is, we hear these quotes all the time that talk about you can't really enjoy the ups without the downs. But many of the entrepreneurial stories that I've heard in this show and through reading and listening, it's like, they had some deep, deep downs, but they just kept working, they kept plugging. And what I love about what you're saying is that, these entrepreneurs, they're willing to strike out. And what I've continued to hear is that entrepreneurs are identifying a problem and a need that isn't being met or that they could meet better. And so a lot of times people are like, well, why do these entrepreneurs get paid so well? Or why are they just getting all this lavish income and all that? It's like, because they identified something people really want or need, and they found a way to kick ass at providing it for those people. And with that, that exchange, people are happy to pay when you find a solution to their problem, especially when it's a big problem. So it's really fascinating the way that, like you said, a lot of risk, but also a lot of reward, and then the fulfillment in doing something that really matters to you that you connect with is so profound.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when you were saying these people that just kind of lose everything, it reminded me of a quote, and I tried to look it up. If I find it, I'll let you know, because I always like to quote my sources, but I'm blanking on who it was right now. But he said it was a forefather type of guy, way back when. But he said, I never had a savings because I was always investing in myself to grow. He didn't worry about saving money because he constantly was investing in growing and traveling and exploring and discovering himself. Because, we think about, oh yeah, we want to build up our savings, but really nothing's guaranteed in life. So it's like, do you want savings or experiences and connections and to be able to touch people's lives? So now we're going to get into more of your entrepreneurial story, because once you left school, and it's cool because I got to read your about section, but I can't wait for you to dig into it, because this is also really interesting stuff that I'm sure has helped you throughout all of your business. So can you take us through the next step after college?
Actually, I think we were still in college when we left. I was still studying philosophy.
Oh, yes, okay.
Because there's an important part of the story in there that
okay.
If you miss out on this part of the story, then you'll miss out of part of the enigma that is Jon Bowes.
The mystery and the illusion surrounding Jon.
Jon Bowes is like an onion.
You peel back one layer and you find there's 30 more.
Yeah. You know what else has many layers, man? Parfait. Why can't I be like parfait?
Man, everybody likes a parfait.
Good old Shark.
Awesome.
Yeah, So in university, my first summer was about 3 weeks before the summer, and I said, okay, I need to find myself a job. And my sister, I said to her, she went to University of Pennsylvania, very nice school, and I said, hey, I'm looking for some type of job, what are you doing this summer, etc. And she said, well, my friend Megan did this internship last summer where she made $24,000. And I was like, okay, I'm in, sign me up. I like to make decisions either very quickly or after a lot of research. I find that minimizes regret. It's kind of that in-between stage when you think about it for a couple days, you don't do complete due diligence, but you did make a snap decision. Those are the decisions that bite you in the ass. So
that's interesting.
Either make a decision really fast or take a long time to do it, but don't sit in the middle. So I jumped into that, and I didn't know what I was getting myself into, so I went to sales school, and she told me a little bit more about it. And what I was going to be doing was going door to door in Long Island, New York, selling educational books and software for kids, from babies all the way through SAT, ACT preparation stuff. Now, of course, my goal was to break the company record for the top first year, and I was so cocky I was going to do it, and I was just like, hell yeah, this is easy. Are you kidding me? I just have to sell to 3 people every day, and I'll just do that before lunch and then just take the rest of the day off, right? No, and they're recommending, yeah, you're going to work 80 plus hours a week in order to make, the first year's average is $8,000 or $9,000 or something. Which is not bad. That's net profit. For your first year. But I was like, no, I'm gonna make 40. I'm making $40,000 totally. And so my first day I went out and I sold nothing. And my second day I went out and I cried a couple times the first day. My sales pitch was horrible. It was very emotional. It's tough getting rejected by 50 strangers in a day.
Yeah.
I experienced that at other points in college too. But so then I went the second day, and I was out and I was working all day, and it was about 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night, and I hadn't made any sales, and I was coming back to an appointment, and I was running across the street, and I was running everywhere all day, pouring out sweat. It was beautiful. And then I heard this guy across the street and just said, "Hey, buddy, come over here." And I was like, "Oh no, what's up?" Because a couple other people had stopped me earlier in the day and been like, "What are you doing around here? You stealing stuff, kid?" I'm like,
"Oh yeah, okay."
Clearly selling books, like the fuck.
Mm-hmm.
So then I go over there, and he sits me down, and his name was Joseph, and his wife's name was Sophia, and they had a little 1-year-old baby. And he said, "Hey, dude, I'm so impressed by you. I've seen you out here hustling all day. I'm in sales too. Like, what is it you're selling? I'm buying it." And I was just like, okay. And anyways, like about, an hour later, I sat there for way too long with him. An hour later, I left his house with a check for $185 and half of the payment for the full kit set. I could have sold him more, thinking back on it now, but but that was a cool experience. So unfortunately though, what that did for me was it taught me that I had to work really damn hard to make a sale.
Mm-hmm.
That I basically had to hustle for about 2 days.
Right.
So I went out every summer after that, and I sold books door to door for every year of college, and then the summer after.
Mm-hmm.
And my next summer, I did about the same. I made like $9,000 or $10,000 my first summer. And next summer, I did about the same. Next summer, I did about the same. I wasn't growing. Mm-hmm. And then the next summer after that, I went out and I brought my first team member, and he made about $8,000. And then that summer, I made gross profit of $42,000.
Wow.
And net profit of $17,000.
Wow.
So that's as a junior in university.
I was gonna say, man, I was like those types of numbers, I mean, now for most people would be massive, and in a summer of work, that's a really short time frame to bring in those kind of numbers. But in university, you got a lot of kegs for all the parties. That's
yeah. Well, I spent it on some really dumb shit. Let's just. So I go back that year, and I was supposed to graduate that end of that year, but I didn't. I ended up taking an extra semester. Mm-hmm. And I started building a team. So it was basically like a direct sales organization, and you'd recruit people and you'd train them. So and then you'd get a percentage of their commission, essentially not taken from their commission, but you get a bonus from the company,
right,
for recruiting them.
Okay.
And so I brought a team. I had 5 people on my personal team, plus my one guy from the summer before came back. And then I was an organization leader that year. So I was leading a team of 9 people. And we went to Bakersfield, California. Mm-hmm. And Brian, have you ever been to Bakersfield?
No, I'm in LA right now. I've been
Don't go.
Okay.
Never go. It is officially the most polluted city in the United States of America.
Wow. Okay.
So my business, so I trained these guys. We had team meetings. I bought them some books. We all went to sales school. We got hyped up. We got to have like breakfast with the president of the company one day. It was really cool. I was working directly with the vice president of the company, and we went out. And after the first like 2 days in this godforsaken polluted hellhole that just like totally cooked us because the sun was so damn hot. You would leave, like, if you left a plastic cup, like from Starbucks or something, sitting in your cup holder, sometimes it would just melt.
Oh my God.
It was awful. Yeah, it's even hotter than Las Vegas, I think. And
wow.
Las Vegas is pretty damn hot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, my team just fell apart. Mm-hmm. After the first 2 or 3 days, one of my teammates leaves. Mm-hmm. And this is a guy I'd recruited and trained and gone through all hell to get him there.
Right.
And then after the first week, 2 of my other teammates left. They quit. Mm-hmm. And so it was me and it was like a couple other guys. And then I kind of crashed and burned, man. Like I was working 80 to 100 hours a week, just doing stuff. And I was like, why am I doing this? Like, what is my goal here? And I realized more and more that it wasn't my passion. It wasn't something I was really excited about. Mm-hmm. What I was most excited about was the money involved.
Right.
And it was around that time that I picked up 4-Hour Workweek again. I had read it like a year before that or whatever, but it just kind of, I was reading a lot of books around the time and it just kind of slipped me by. I didn't like cause that paradigm shift. Mm-hmm. It was just like, oh, that's interesting. Okay, that's interesting, whatever.
Right,
blah, blah, blah.
Some
Another
good
guy's 4-step
ideas.
formula for doing whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I read it again, and it just totally shook my world. I was like, yo, this sucks. I am going to be the fat guy in the red BMW if I keep this up, and I'm going to die young. And so that was it. I was done. And I went back after the summer, and I didn't do very well at all. I ended up in debt, actually, after the summer.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really have any savings. I was just like, I have no idea where I'm going from here, but I know I'm not going back there.
Right.
And my family's like, well, just get a job for a little while, man. Just, because I had 5 years of sales experience, right? So I could walk into a job and say, give me 60 grand a year.
Right.
And they do it. Mm-hmm. And like, there's not many people fresh out of college who can just walk into a place and say that. Like,
right.
I probably could have pulled 70 or 75 if I had really pushed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
with the company.
It's like most college grads, it's like one of the hardest hurdles to overcome is you're applying for a job and it says, ideally we'd like 3 to 5 years of experience and these certifications, and you're like, dude, I like just got out of school. So for you to be able to walk in and say, hey, I've got 5 years of experience, here's the numbers I've generated, it's like, that's a pretty easy sale, because they're like, dude, yeah, we'll take you in entry level, they might even kick you up a level, but like you said, oh, and for the listeners, again, I've mentioned it many times on the show, but if you haven't read Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek and you're interested in the entrepreneurial lifestyle, getting out and exploring, it was a game changer for me. It was a game changer for John. Highly, highly recommended. But yeah, so
yo, shit. If you have not read that book, you email me, Jon@Adventupreneur.com, and I'll buy you a copy and ship it to your house. Like, that's a promise.
Well, guys, you cannot make it any easier. You don't even have to go on Amazon. Just send an email to John and he'll buy you the damn book. So everyone listening, if you haven't read it, please send an email to John. Say you heard about it from this interview. And I mean, don't. I don't know. I mean, John, you made the open invite, so maybe 100,000 people. I'm really I'm being ambitious about my audience growing, but hey, that's what it's about. So, if you can please continue.
So that shook my world up. I was like, yo, I'm working on mine. And I had started, actually, I got sucked into a pyramid scheme. So this was 2014 in January, February-ish. Mm-hmm. So I built this whole blog, and it didn't really have a point. And I was trying to promote this product, which I had paid, a couple $1,000s to buy into. And then the market was super saturated, and it was super scammy, mm-hmm. super high pressure sales techniques, just a lot of dark black hat stuff going on there.
Right.
But I was just like, one of my buddies recommended it to me, and I trusted him, and I was just like, okay, cool, I'm in. So mm-hmm. I just bought it. And that was a terrible decision because, well, I wouldn't say it was a terrible decision because, once again, it's like one of those things, you can learn from it, or you can just say it was a waste.
Right.
And I learned a lot. I learned about, having a low-end front offer and then scaling people up the buying chain up mm-hmm. to, your back-end offers. I learned about cost per click advertising. I learned about conversion rate optimization, testing. I learned about having a list and building it. Mm-hmm. And the big problem was, though, that I was just trying to make money with it. I didn't really feel like I had a purpose. I didn't feel like I had anything else in it except the money. So it was the same problem with selling books. I was mm-hmm. just like, yo, I want to make a shit ton of money. This seems like a good way to do it.
Right. And John, just one key point that you hit on that I want to emphasize for all the listeners, especially the young adults who are not like looking for a job, not feeling connected. When John referenced those scammy sales techniques, if you ever feel like, and some of them are very good, and that's why they work, but I don't believe in them. It's like John said, that's not the type of thing you want to go after. But the way to kind of spot this is if you find yourself reading sales copy or listening to an advertisement, and they make you feel like shit. They make you feel like you're not good enough until you get the car and the house and everything. And they just keep kind of drilling you down. They do things that make you feel like kind of manipulated. And you're like, oh man, maybe I really should dive in here. When you start to feel those feelings, be aware of that, because those tricks and those things that can get you to kind of like overcome your fears and dive in and purchase are sometimes just to do that, to dive in, because they know once you've purchased, you can't go back. So be careful when somebody says, hey, I can help you make a lot of money, but you just got to spend a lot of money, and just give me all your money first. So just one key point I wanted to call out there, John. So please continue.
Yeah, and that's a very, very good point, Brian. And I think the difference between manipulation and persuasion is intent.
Yes. Absolutely.
Because, like, literally, as I'm progressing more into what I do now is copywriting, right? So I write sales copy. And as I'm progressing more into it, I'm realizing that you can actually literally hypnotize people.
Yep.
And the real reason that people buy is nothing that you even think is close to why they're actually buying. Like, there's the logical reason. I think it was Ben Franklin who said, there's the reason people buy something, and then there's the reason they tell their wife. So there's the logical reason, and then there's the other justifications, the real reason that they're actually buying. And it's very, so I always recommend to people, like, if you're going to be pressured, just stop.
Right.
Take 24 hours and then go back and look at it again and then decide if you're going to purchase. But always kind of like take at least, or if it's like a 10-hour sale or whatever, just take at least like a couple hours or take 20 minutes. But just kind of give yourself some time to get away from the moment, and then
Yeah, especially when someone is pushing you and saying you gotta, especially on a big investment, because you'll get these kind of shark people that try and manipulate and pressure and tweak you into the point where you're like, I've got to do it, otherwise I'll never be happy. You know, when they're saying you got to buy now, you got to invest now, I'm only making this offer to you because we're buddies. I mean, these are all just red flags that should be shooting up. And that's the thing. In any sale, you have the right, you have the choice at any point to be like, no, man, I'm done. I'm taking my time. And if they pull the offer off the table, well, you know what? They pull the offer off the table, and it's like, it's probably a product you didn't want to begin with. But like Jon said, I've only just started to scratch the surface in sales, but also in psychology and all the different ways of, speaking and how you can almost hypnotize an audience in writing. And if a person is trying to, essentially, I think what you said, the idea of like the intent behind it is so key, because if a person is doing it with the intent of helping, of providing a valuable message, or of helping you overcome barriers that you've created to achieve a result you want in your life, I think that's done with the right intent, and I think in most cases people would agree. If the person is trying to get something, instead of give, if they're trying to get theirs, get something, get money, a lot of times, that's an imbalanced value proposition where they're just trying to force. It's like have you ever seen the movie The Internship?
No, I have not.
Oh, it's called. Yeah, you would definitely like it, because Vince Vaughn talks about working in sales. He goes, listen, I could sell anything to anybody. He goes, do you want me to just like throw a generic line at them and then shove some product down their throat? Because I'll do it. And so be careful of that for all the listeners. When you feel that pressure, when you feel like someone is just like kind of tearing you down, like Jon said, you may not even realize it's happening, but just notice the feeling you get, and that intuitive feeling, that's going to tell you a lot about working with this person. So, all right, Jon, great tangent, but back to your story. So you read the 4-Hour Work Week. It is a total paradigm shift for you, and then what came next?
So after that, I was unsure what to do, so I did the only logical thing to me at the moment, and I bought a one-way ticket to Peru. And I went back to Florida. I went back to Tallahassee, and I sold 90% of my stuff. And I just sold it on Craigslist, on Facebook, whatever. Just got rid of all the junk that I had accumulated, and made a couple $100 doing that, like 500 or whatever, and then a couple bigger things that. So I ended up with about like $800 or so out of that. And then my dad, actually, I told him, I was like, dude, I just bought this one-way ticket to Peru. And I had told my parents a little while ago, I said, guys, can you just stop giving me money? Like, just don't give me money, period. Even if I ask for it. Because I want to wean myself from being dependent on you.
Right.
And if you're really serious about entrepreneurship, I would recommend you do that, because if you have that easy source of cash from your parents and that's still an option, you're going to take advantage of it. Or your parents are going to feel this urge to protect you unless you explicitly tell them not to.
Right.
So he found a clever way around that. He was looking at starting a new business, and he needed some market research done. So he hired me to do that for him.
Okay. Well played, Dad. Well played.
Yeah, and I earned it. I did some damn good keyword research. I analyzed all the competition. I basically came up with a whole marketing strategy for him on this idea that he had. And yeah, he paid me like, I think it was around $1,000, like $1,200 or something for that. And then, so I had a bit of money when I went to Peru, and it wasn't a super lot though. But the cool thing about Peru is, so one of the big reasons I wanted to go to Peru was to do ayahuasca. And to go off into the jungle.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
You know what ayahuasca is, Brian?
It's like correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's like an Indian tribe ritual where you go on a soul-searching journey and like try to have an epiphany, like going out into nature.
Kind of. It's a little more shitty than that, like literally.
Okay.
So ayahuasca is actually a tea that is made from a root and a plant. And this root contains 5-MeO-DMT, which is a substance which your brain actually already naturally produces, and it releases when you dream. And there's kind of, it basically, if you watch, there's a documentary called DMT, the Spirit Molecule. But one of the other things that I did in university, by the way, that's kind of relevant, was I was president of Students for Sensible Drug Policy. So basically, I was involved at the state level in Florida in getting a couple, or like a law passed, and just we helped get marijuana legal, or medical marijuana on the ballot, and that was really cool. So I learned a lot about drugs from that.
I was gonna say, so you're even more aligned with Tim Ferriss and using psychedelic mushrooms and all this different experimentation. But hey, man, I mean, it's like. I think part of the beauty of life is experimenting in the things that you want to try, and I firmly believe as long as you're not hurting yourself or others and you're trying new things, it's like, who's to say that's wrong? It's like there's so much to experience out there. So you wanted to do ayahuasca, so you went ahead and went for it.
Absolutely. And side note, I'm actually working on a blog post right after this interview that will be definitely published by the time this is live. That's called Why Every Entrepreneur Should Try Psychedelics at Least Once. So you guys can Google that and you'll find it.
And listeners, watch out, because Jon, with his amazing sales mastery and wizardry, is like, if he gets me high by the end of this interview, like I won't even know what happened. There's just a guy in a trench coat shows up, take this, and then the end of the interview, I'm seeing things, and if I start not making sense, it's Jon. It was the sales.
Listen to the unicorn.
So Jon, the unicorn on my shoulder is telling me no.
But it's really is. I think it's something that's important to kind of talk about, and that's another thing about philosophy that I really appreciated was I could talk about things like this, and I was very firmly against all types of drugs, including alcohol. Raised believing that it was like bad, it was a sin, it was awful. Don't do any drugs, etc. And then I got on the internet and I started researching things, and I discovered that most of these psychedelics that are illegal are actually safer than pretty much everything that's legal. Like, they're safer than caffeine, safer than alcohol. More people die from taking aspirin than from taking mushrooms. Like, they're incredibly safe. And it's bizarre to me that so many people say, well, no, those are illegal. Like, let's not talk about those. Let's just drink some more caffeine and then go out and drink some alcohol and then drink a Red Bull mixed with vodka. And then you wake up the next morning feeling like shit after going out and spending all your money on dumb shit. And it's like, that's legal. It blows my mind. So
I mean, dude, you have so many college kids that are like, because I'm in the same boat where it's like, all right, man, no, that's illegal, that's wrong, it's sinful, it's all these things, and it's like, it's so interesting because you have kids in college that are like, oh yeah, those psychedelics and all these other things are wrong. And then they're snorting Adderall and drinking 3 Monsters to get through studying, and the detrimental effects that has on your health are insane. But the more I've listened to like Tim Ferriss's podcast, actually, because he brings on a lot of people to talk about psychedelics, it's interesting because I think even one speaker talked about that, like, there was a political campaign during the 70s that they didn't want this, to be legalized because of the results it would have against them. Someone's money was in jeopardy. So it's interesting to learn more about, it's not like we're told our whole lives, it's like put up the cross fingers, like, it's dangerous, stay away. And in reality, like you said, when people and scientists have actually done the research, there's medicinal and health benefits. So it's and I'm glad you brought this up because because, and you said people don't want to talk about it, because that's one of the big goals of my show, is there's so many things that young adults want to talk about. Sex, drugs, like all traveling, I mean, everything. And it's like, but we're afraid to talk about certain things. We're afraid to talk about our dreams and our ambitions and our desires. That's part of what this show is about. So thank you for bringing that up, because this is exactly the type of stuff I want to be covering. So awesome.
No problem, brother. Always glad to talk about psychedelics. They are marvelous substances. So I went to Peru. So ayahuasca, basically, when you drink it, it is basically the strongest psychedelic. Mm-hmm. And what it does is, at first you purge. And purging basically means you're going to puke and you're going to shit and you're going to sweat and you're going to feel really bad for a while. But it's really weird, because when you're puking, you don't feel like you're puking puke. You feel like you're puking up like black snakes, or
oh my God.
It's a bizarre substance that causes crazy stuff.
Well, I'm sold. I mean, puking up snakes, I'm in. Where do I buy some?
I wrote a 6,000 word blog post about it on my blog, so you can read my entire story. And then there's a link in there to a whole bunch of research.
Okay.
A bunch of different documentaries, a bunch of different blog posts to read, just investigating this fascinating molecule, DMT, and then also the ayahuasca ritual. So,
oh yeah, I will definitely check that out after the show. So, you're purging, and then what came next after the purge?
So after the purge comes like peace, and it's basically a way of kind of cleansing yourself and getting yourself in the moment. And, you could go into all of these like kind of pseudoscientific or just complete woo-woo things that are like, oh yes, it helps you reconnect with your spirit self. And then you go on a journey guided by your guardian. But I mean, I like to keep things very scientific. And I just was kind of curious about experiencing it, because it's pretty safe if done in the proper way. And it can have tremendously profound effects on people regarding things like addiction, regarding things like your mindset, regarding things like what's possible. Like DMT, the active ingredient, when smoked, which I've done this before, I've smoked it, and you basically just blast off. You leave this universe. Like, no joke. You communicate with these beings that are made of love and light and positivity, and they say things to you, but it's very strange, because they're not speaking English, they're not communicating to you through words, they're just communicating to you through thought. And I've had some very, very powerful experiences before, when I was kind of a low point in my life and just feeling a little bit alone, and I smoked some DMT with some friends, and then these beings, they just communicated to me like, we're on your side, we're here with you, you're never alone. And it was really, it really like got to me, like people say that, but it was like, it was just something else out there, and it was crazy. And I always like to follow that by saying, it all could have just been in my imagination, sure, but does that make it any less real? Right, exactly. Like, it still happened, even if it was just in my imagination.
I mean, what's amazing, and it's funny because some people like hear that and you're like, well, that's nonsense. That's not real. That was just this crazy.
That's just some crazy kid on drugs.
Yeah, he's just sitting in mom's basement just tripping balls, and it's like, but what I think is amazing, and it's such a, again, like we've talked about, like shaping your reality and philosophy and creating your beliefs, and it's like, sometimes our mind reacts in a way to protect us, because we want to feel like we know what's going on. We want to feel like, no, I know how the world. Oh, I love this one from the cynical older generation. I'm sorry to any of the older people on the show, but we're young guys bonding here. But it's like the cynical older generation, like, they see you ambitious and joyful about life and excited, and you're like, I'm going to take this on, and they're like, well, you just don't know how the world works yet. And
I hate that.
Oh my God, it's one of those statements that people use to, again, because they're telling themselves, I know how it works, I understand. And it often happens, I've seen it a lot in relationships, in love. And people will tell me true love doesn't exist, distance relationships can't work, when I know countless examples, and one of the best ones being my parents' relationship. It's like, people will say, you don't know, it's like, oh, I want to find a job where I'm happy and I travel and I love my life. And they're like, yeah, because they don't want to choose to believe that's even possible. They would rather try to tear you down and stay in that current belief system that doesn't make them happy, but they're comfortable in, rather than open their mind to a new possibility. So like you said, who cares whether it happened or not, and it's like, what do you define as it happening? Is like, because if it happens in your mind, it can be very real. And and there are so many things that happen in the world that we have no idea about. I think there's so many powerful, wonderful, whether you want to call it God or the universe or your intuition, there's so many forces out there that how do these amazing things, like, I don't believe it's just coincidence. So when you're talking about that, it's like, people say, I see ghosts, or I see this, or I spoke to my mom in a dream, or this or that. And it's like, who's to tell them it's wrong? And how do you know? We're only inside our own heads and inside our own bodies. So it's only by listening and asking and exploring that you'll ever give yourself a chance to know whether this is real for you or not. And that's a key point, is real for you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, well, we could do a whole podcast episode on this, I feel like, but I want to get back to your story.
Now we've decided nothing exists. Let's go out for lunch.
All right, and scene. All right, thanks, guys. You can check out more. No, all right. All right, so you went to Peru to do ayahuasca, and you did it, and you had these amazing feelings. You said at some low times it picked you up. And so what was kind of the big next step in the journey?
So the big next step in the journey was I was there and I was spending money, and it wasn't much, but I was living on maybe $15 a day, including lodging, because it's Peru after all, right? So you can eat dirt cheap.
Were you in Lima, or were you in another city?
I was in Iquitos then, and then I went to Puerto Maldonado, Cusco, Arequipa, Machu Picchu, Cusco, Machu Picchu, Arequipa, and then over to Ica, and then to Lima.
Okay, and how's your Spanish, just out of curiosity?
It's okay. It actually got really good when I was there. I didn't speak barely a word of Spanish when I was there. But before I went, I spoke Italian decently well because I had studied in Italy in university.
Okay.
And that helped, but I just picked it up really fast. I had a little Spanish dictionary, and I was just, one of the first things I learned to say was, ¿Cómo se dice? So I would just say to people, like, ¿Cómo se dice esto? And I would just, like, hold something up, and then they would teach me how to say it, because that means, how do you say it?
Right. Yeah.
And that's, yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
If you can say, hello, I'm fine, or, like, hello, how are you? Where's the bathroom? Where can I find a cheap hooker? And how do you say this in any language? Then you can pretty much go to that country and have a grand old time.
You curveballed me with that one. I was like, because this is a topic I have a lot of passion around, because I'm actually developing a product around this right now and helping language learning. And so
finding hookers?
On how to find the best hooker. Listen, it's much easier than you think, all right? And
let's collaborate on that. I'll help you with the sales copy.
Hi, are you a young traveler looking for a good time but just can't find the right hooker? Well, we've got a product for you. I'll do the announcer voice for that one. So,
are you tired of pulling down her skirt and it's smelling like a dead fridge inside there? Dead fridge.
Well, we've got the answers. In 5 easy steps, you can find... All right, wait, too far, too much.
All right.
See, but this is the beauty of having my own show, is that I can do whatever I want. I have nobody checking, and so if I'm having fun with something, I can just keep rolling. But yes, a language learning product on how to accelerate language learning and pick things up faster, and using a Tim Ferriss thing, the Pareto analysis, and what's the 20% of stuff you need to study to get 80% of what you need. So that's going to be coming out quickly, and along with my book. So if you're curious about learning languages, I can hook you up there. But it sounds like you do pretty well with it on your own. So, but if you're interested, and that's going to be free, by the way. I'm not trying to sell you, because I think if I tried to sell you, you would just open loop it back to me and then sell me my own product for 3 times the cost. So, which in this case it's free, so that'd be easy. But so you're traveling around Peru, and what took you from that first step from just enjoying Peru and kind of living this almost, actually, have you ever read the book Vagabond, the Vagabonding?
Yes, I actually listened to that audiobook before I left for Peru.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So I was going to say, so as you were vagabonding, for listeners, another fantastic book recommended by Tim Ferriss.
I won't buy that one, though.
Okay, yeah, you only get one, guys. Come on, don't be greedy.
You greedy fucks.
So, just the bastards out there. So, I love you guys. I love you listeners. So, you're vagabonding around Peru. What was that first step into the entrepreneurial lifestyle that you're now currently living?
Well, the first step was I started selling things on Fiverr. So I tried a couple different routes for getting clients and whatnot, and nothing was really working. I made an Elance profile, and I was sending off proposals to people, and just getting shut down. My confidence was super low. I had no results. I had no testimonials. I had nothing. Mm-hmm. I figured out that copywriting was a good path for me to pursue because I knew about philosophy. So I knew about writing a shit ton. Mm-hmm. I knew about making arguments. And I knew about sales. Mm-hmm. So I figured if I could combine the two, then I'd just have this magical path that I could follow, and I'd be a millionaire in 6 months,
Mm-hmm. And John,
dry,
could you, just that easy. And could you explain to the listeners what Elance is, because I think that may be a resource that some people would be interested in getting involved with.
So Elance is a place for freelancers to find work and for people to find freelancers.
Mm-hmm. So for anybody who is interested in doing any kind of freelance labor, and it's all over the internet, it's a great resource. I've checked it out, and not something I've personally done, but it's something that I know many people have had great success with. So, yeah, like you said, John, you've discovered the formula. You've got philosophy, you've got sales. You're going to blend it together and make $1 million. So what came next?
Well, selling these gigs for $5, I only would have needed 200,000 sales in order to make $1 million.
Easy.
Right?
I mean, what?
Actually,
a week
it would have been more than that because Fiverr takes $1 out of every sale you make, so you sell it for $5, and they give you $4, mm-hmm. and they take the other one for payment processing, for their cut, for advertising, etc. They do a lot with that 20%, but still 20% is kind of high.
Right.
And that when you get up to you can do upsells from that to $25 or $100. Mm-hmm. And when you do that, then it gets to be big because it's ooh, you're taking 20 out of my $80. That's right. A little harsh. Mm-hmm. So I started pitching people on other gigs from Fiverr. I made about 20 sales through my Fiverr page. And then I started saying to people, hey, you know what? I'll rewrite your sales page for $25. And at first it was just I was just being a shameless whore, just taking whatever in my way, just yeah, you've got some money. Okay, I don't care what your product is. I'll do this for you.
We can build this into our sales pitch for our product, our whore product.
Exactly, yeah. Find a whore that actually has standards. So I that was a really valuable thing, and this is some advice I give to a lot of people that actually goes against what a lot of other people say. Mm-hmm. If you listen to guys like Ramit Sethi or Tim Ferriss, they're going to tell you, well, just start out as a freelancer and find a person who has a great thing and learn this skill, and then charge them $1,000, $1,500, or $2,000, right? Mm-hmm. And the problem is most people who are just starting out don't have the confidence to successfully pitch these $1,000 to $1,500 to $2,000 gigs.
Right.
And if you do, that's awesome. More power to you. Go ahead and do it. What I recommend to people is just start out devastatingly small. Just start out with a something that's way below you, way beneath you, but will sell. And then you earn your first $5. Right. Then after that, then you earn your first 25, then your first 100, and then you get up to pitching. I can still remember the day I pitched my first gig over $1,000. I was in Maui, and I was ecstatic. I was giddy because I'd worked my way up from this, Mm-hmm. And that was back in March, and that month my income was $600, and then the next month, and my income the next month when I got paid for that, my income was $2,400, and the next month after that it was $3,000 something, and then after that built up, and then the last month it was $75, $51, $84. So
Yeah.
But that was the process. It kind of like, it quadrupled for a couple months. And now I don't even look at things. If someone's like, I have a couple guys who I'm working with who like send me multiple opt-in pages and whatnot, which I do for like, a couple $100. But other than that, I don't look at something unless you want to commit to me for at least 3 months at least $2,000 a month.
Right.
Because it's just not worth my time. Like I have other clients who are paying me that much. I can take care of myself. I can fend for myself now. I can support myself with my money from freelancing. Another thing I want to point out too is, I'm a freelancer right now. I wouldn't call myself a business owner.
Mm-hmm.
I am. If you read a book by Robert Kiyosaki called The Cash Flow Quadrant, which I actually read in the Amazon jungle during my ayahuasca experience when I was there for a week. Pretty cool book.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about the 4 quadrants of income, of cash flow. So the first is being an employee. The second is being self-employed. Then there's being a business owner, and then there's being an investor. Mm-hmm. So if you're an employee, you work for someone else. If you're self-employed, you work for yourself. So that's freelancing. If you're a business owner, other people work for you. And if you're an investor, your money works for you.
Interesting.
So far too many people jump into this idea of passive income, of earning money online and whatnot. They say, okay, I'm going to go right to this business owner quadrant. I'm going to set up a system. It's going to have an autoresponder, and it's going to do this, and it's going to sell this, and then I'm going to have this product. And then they launch it, and it doesn't work, or they don't even get through the launch because they don't have the money to support themselves, and it takes longer than thought, or they don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to sell. They try and do it all themselves, and they suck. Other people just kind of get lucky, and it works, but
right.
That's definitely a rarity.
Mm-hmm.
So with what I recommend people do is they start off in the S quadrant. Like if you're an employee right now, move from being an employee to being self-employed. Start freelancing and start small. Start with $5 gigs on the side, and then scale up and just charge people $25. And then join some communities. I joined a bunch of Facebook groups, and I started finding clients in there. I just would go in and give value. I'd just write a little post about copywriting and why, how people can write better copy. And then whenever I saw someone that was like, hey, I need a copy editor for this, I would just pounce. And it was like, $50, $100 here, like $200 there, $60 here, a percentage of revenue here, whatever. And then I just kept building that up and joined better communities. And now I'm in all these like high level communities, and it's unreal the amount of money that is just passed around in these communities between people who can afford it. They're working at a very high level. Mm-hmm. So the sooner you can get yourself to be a premium brand, the better. Right. But my word of caution is, don't try and position yourself as a premium brand if you have no experience, you're just starting out, you have no testimonials, you have no clients, you have no system in place. Don't try and position yourself as a premium brand, because people will see right through you, and you'll get frustrated, and you'll just quit.
Right.
So start really freaking small.
Right. And I actually love that advice, and that's really interesting, because I remember reading Ramit Sethi's stuff, and I was like, I'd love to charge, but I'm one of those people who's like, man, I'm afraid to dive into that because, and here's a key reason. So for all the listeners, I hope you caught it, because when Jon said, I provided value and then the business came. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to be self-employed, if you want to build lasting connections, you need to focus on giving. You need to provide value to people, because then they have a reason to work with you. And also, the key thing that Jon is saying here, that like the key lesson I'm pulling from it is, if you think about it, everyone says, I want to make $1 million. Like, for me, I would love to make $10,000 for a speech and speak in front of 100,000 people. And so if tomorrow somebody said, hey, Brian, you can do that, I would be amped. But there would definitely be this part of me inside that was like, are you sure you can deliver that kind of value? Are you sure you can deliver a $10,000 speech to $100 to 100,000 people? And I'd have this fear and this insecurity and this uncertainty that would, I think, could keep me from giving an optimal performance. I would still give it my all, but by doing what Jon is saying, by validating your method, by learning, by growing, by starting small and building, as he worked through that process, he knew he could handle the next level up because he crushed the level before that. And so he's proving through repeated success that his method works, that he can do the work, that he can deliver the value. And then all of a sudden, and the thing is, he's 23 and this was only a few months ago that this started. So the time frame, like we often say, like people will say, be patient and it takes time. The time frame doesn't necessarily have to be what you think it has. It doesn't need to take 10 years. But definitely consider that building up and building on small incremental successes can give you so much more momentum, because those premium clients want premium service, and you're much more prepared to provide that once you've done the work. So I love that point, Jon. I think that's critical. So, all right. So you got into the freelancing space. You're starting to build your business. And can you tell the listeners a little bit about what your life started to look like as you started to move into more of the premium clients?
So I love working with premium clients. And I do think that Ramit Sethi has a wonderful program with Earn 1K and Zero to Launch and everything. I've hand copied his sales letters. We'll talk about why I've done that later. Mm-hmm. But he is a masterful salesman, and he is really good at what he does. Mm-hmm. And where I kind of diverge from him is his target market that he's trying to talk to is a little older than mine. I want to talk to guys who just graduated, like your target demographic. Mm-hmm. And I want to actually require them I want to give them all the tools they need to make money online for free. Mm-hmm. And before they can I don't even have any products yet. I might by the time this launches, but mm-hmm. I want to require them to use my methods, the free methods, to make money before they can purchase anything from me.
I love that. That's a great concept, because you know what that's going to do for you is that's going to give you people that are invested and are willing to do the work. Because anybody can download or sign in or put their name in, but when somebody comes back and says, hey dude, I made $4,000 based off the free stuff, then when they invest, they're going to be a better client. They'll use your advice, they'll grow even more, and then it's a positive testimonial for you. So it's just a virtuous cycle there.
Yeah, exactly. It's a filtering mechanism. And then if they come to me and they say, hey, I made $4,000, then I'll be like, okay, cool. Well, here's what you're going to do. You're going to give me one of those $1,000 that you already made from my free stuff, and I'm going to help you make 10 more. Mm-hmm. And then I'll know that they're serious, and it'll keep away. There's people out there who kind of are addicted to buying make money online schemes and pyramid schemes and stuff. And it's like it's actually a dopamine rush that they get from buying it. Mm-hmm. And then oftentimes they end up refunding. And they're just they just get it and they'll play around with it for like a week. It's the new shiny object, and then they'll just refund. Right. And they'll leave it and they'll on to the next thing. And then it's like each thing. And I just want to filter those people out. I don't want them. I don't want their money. I don't want to deal with them because they suck. Mm-hmm. I want to deal with the people who are willing to take action. And that's why I love charging premium prices and working with premium clients, because these people are willing to take action, and they don't ask questions. Like, one of my worst clients ever paid me $150 to rewrite his whole website. Now, I made the pitch. I was like, yeah, dude, back when my confidence was low, I was like, I'll rewrite your whole website for $150, man. Mm-hmm. And then I rewrote his homepage. I rewrote his about page. He paid me $75 up front. And I found him through Fiverr, no surprise. Mm-hmm. And he paid me $75 up front and then $75 when I was going to be done. And I rewrote his homepage, I rewrote his about page, I rewrote his opt-in page, I rewrote a whole bunch of things. And it was okay. It was definitely better than what he had. What he had was just pure crap. And it was just, it was god-awful. And then, so then I sent him an invoice for the second half. And I sent him a message with that saying, hey, dude, so I've redone this, and this. What else would you like me to do? And I sent that along with the second half of the invoice, right? Mm-hmm. That seemed fair. And I didn't hear from him. So I emailed him again like a few days later. Didn't hear from him. Emailed him again a few days later. Emailed him like 5 times over the next month. He didn't respond at all. And I was like, okay, what the hell is going on? So I went to his business page on Facebook. And I don't always recommend this. Well, I do. If a client's being a dick, it's like, fuck you, pay me. And then, so I went to his business page and I left a review and I said, hey, I would not recommend doing business with this company. They did not pay me, the freelancer who rewrote their website. 1 star. And he messaged me the next day. Actually, it was later that day. It was that night. And he said, take your review down. And he said, I have paid the second half of your invoice now, and I want you to know that your work is terrible, and we feel like we got absolutely no value from it. And I was like, geez, that's harsh, man.
Boy, they must be killing it with that, that $75 really tanked them, You crushed them, dude. I mean.
It's like you couldn't just say, hey, dude, can you rewrite this or can you do more of this? Like, I bet if you went to his website right now, this is the real kicker, though. So I went back to his website a couple weeks later. I was like, I'm just going to check and see what he put up instead of what I wrote.
Right.
And what I had written was up there. Mm-hmm. And I just checked again like a month ago, and it's still there. Like, this stuff that he said was completely terrible and he didn't get any value from is still the business card for his website. So, like, it's just people like that. They suck,
Right.
And then with my premium clients, with these people who are paying me, like a couple $1,000s to write a sales page for them, I send it over to them, and they're like, I love this. This is awesome. And of course, I'm taking it more seriously too because they paid me a couple grand. So even if he said, hey, dude, this really isn't the right feeling, this isn't the right thing, it's like I get less complaints with people who I'm charging a lot of money than people who I'm charging a little bit of money. Because the people who I'm charging a lot of money, they want to justify it to themselves, so they look for the good in it. So it's really interesting. There's actually some pretty deep psychology in this, and we can kind of go into this really fast here if you don't mind me just elaborating.
And just for 1 second, John, like what I want to really, again, because this is another huge point, especially for the young adults or people in our age group that are listening. He's talking about client selection here, and this is something that every good entrepreneur I've ever met talks about, because there's this feeling like, I remember being in college and saying, all I need to do is come up with the next pet rock or Snuggie, right? I want to make something that's quick and easy, and then I can sell it off for $1 million, and then I'll be great. One problem there is you're not invested, but two, when you're trying to get anybody, you will get anybody. If you think about it in dating, if you went out to the bar and you're like, yeah, I'd like anybody, well, that's a pretty wide range, and you're going to have a wide berth of experiences based off anybody. If you are willing to be confident in yourself, like John said, a big part of this is your self-confidence and growing and developing yourself. But if you're willing to say, all right, I'm going to go for someone that values me, that I find to be crazy attractive, that treats me right, and that I'm going to treat right, all of a sudden you're putting yourself in a whole different category of relationship, of dating, of sex, of all of that. So when it comes to the clients you're picking, this is something I've heard many times, and John is just reaffirming it, is those low-end clients, when you set your price point so low that pretty much anybody can come in, those are the people that are going to be the quickest to complain. And if you're selling something to help them change, whether it's a diet or a habit, and it doesn't work, they're going to be the quickest to blame you, to want refunds. When you get to the premium content, these people are taking longer. I mean, in general, they're putting more consideration into the purchase. And so when they're buying, they're sold on you and your product. And like John said, I'm curious to hear more about this. They are looking for reasons to support you and root you on. Whereas some of those low-end customers who are negative to begin with, the negative Nancys of the world, they're looking for reasons for it to not work. And when they find it, they're like, aha, and they want to call that out. So can you give us a little bit more on the psychology behind those price points and the type of consumer you're getting?
So with what people desperately want is they want to be right.
Yep.
And if you give them a very low price, which they consider lower than what most other people would charge, if you say, hey, you know what, most people would charge you $1,000 for this, I'm going to do it for $100. They're going to expect to get 1/10 of the quality as if they paid $1,000. Right. And they're going to look for reasons to make that right. But if they've invested and you say, yeah, it's $5,000 and you've got to pay that and that's it, and you don't waver on your price, and they go, oh geez, it's a big investment. okay, and then they decide you know what, I'm going to go for it. They don't want to be wrong about that. They don't want to feel like they made a dumb mistake. So they're going to be like looking at it and saying, they're going to be more gracious with you. They're going to give you the benefit of the doubt. They're going to give you some constructive feedback if you need it. But most of the time, they're going to be really happy with what you do because they paid so much for it.
And something that I've heard again from other entrepreneurs is the value in an internet or an online business presence, your social media and social business presence online, testimonials are so powerful. So when you have these high-end clients that are ranting and raving about how amazing you are, that boosts your credibility and your ability to drive even more sales and even higher volume sales or higher value sales.
Yes, exactly.
So, I mean, dude, I'm already like, I'm going to have to bring him back on for so many more episodes. Like, there's so many things we could talk about. So we're going to have a week of Jon, guys. See, his salesmanship is working. So yeah, but all right. So back to the story and talking a little bit more about the life you're living. So you had read the 4-Hour Workweek, which for everyone who's remember The Offer and remember, it's about automation. It's about what Tim Ferriss calls micro or mini retirements, where you stop working and you go travel, you explore, you do what you're picturing retirement to be in 30, 40, 50 years. You do it now, and then you come back and you work some more. And so can you tell the listeners a little bit about the lifestyle you've lived, some of the places you've traveled through creating this lifestyle for yourself?
Well, yeah. I mean, Canada, Las Vegas, Maui, San Diego, Colorado, that trip, Montana, like these are all just places I've kind of stayed for a while. Peru was kind of like where it started. That's when I started first earning money online, but I wasn't really location independent then because I wasn't pulling in enough. But that was only December last year.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, 8 months later, here I am. This is August now. And 8 months later, here I am, and I'm on track to earn, 5 figures this month as a 23-year-old college graduate who graduated with a semi-useless degree in philosophy that won't really impact my earnings. And I just wrote the copy for a fairly big Facebook marketing expert online. And he's expecting to do multiple 6 figures with his launch. And once I have that under my belt, then it's like, yeah, I've participated in a multi-6-figure launch. He's literally, he's telling me I should like take my rates and just multiply them by 5.
Wow.
Which is terrifying as hell to me because I'm like, oh no, I'm not worth that much, right? But what he's pointing out to me is like, if someone pays me $15,000 to write a sales page, and they can make $200,000 for that sales page, then no shit, they're going to pay it. The same way that it's a no-brainer for these guys. The same way it's a no-brainer for someone who can make $50,000 to pay $2,000 or $3,000.
Right.
So it's just about leveling up. The top copywriters in the world. So that's the skill that I chose to learn. When I first started out, I was doing graphic design. I was doing some SEO stuff. I was doing a whole bunch of different things. And when I narrowed it down to copywriting, things just exploded. And the reason why I chose copywriting was 1, because I studied philosophy and sales, and 2, because it is the only thing that I know of that you can take everything away from me. You take my computer away, you take everything away. I have nothing. Give me a paper and a pen, and I'll get it all back. Like, I can write a sales letter and sell something and then create a product based around that if it works. So what you can do is, if you learn to write sales letters, then you can write a sales letter first without even having a product, then test it, see how it does. If it works, if it converts, if enough people click the button, or if enough people respond to it, then you make the product. Because you already know that it's going to have sales.
That's actually a really interesting point you bring up. So Noah Kagan, are you familiar with Noah Kagan?
Yeah, Noah Kagan, I love his validation.
Exactly, yeah. So Noah Kagan talks about validating your business before you create it, because so many people have this idea and this beautiful thing that they want to bring to the world, and they have so much passion and emotion behind it, and they put hours, they pour their blood, sweat, and tears into it, and they put it out there, and it turns out no one wants it. And I mean, I know Jon will tell us that with good marketing and good sales copy, you can change that, but the first thing that Noah Kagan talks about is find a need and validate that people are willing to pay for it and willing to pay the numbers you said. So I've heard of people, actually one of the guys I interviewed on my show, Brad Costanzo, his first product, he hadn't even made it yet. And he thought, well, let me validate. He put up a sales page, wrote some sales copy, and when people clicked the link to purchase, it said, hey, sorry, the product is almost ready, just type in your email. And so he built up this huge email list, and he got, I think, 200 or 300 people in the first day, and he was like, oh, I guess I got to make this now. But then he already knew he had 200 to 300 people that were going to purchase this product. So that whole idea of validating before creating saves you a lot of time, effort, money, research, the whole shebang.
And think about this. So he has that list of 200, 300 people, right? Mm-hmm. Now, he has a couple different ways he could go with that. Maybe he slaps a $25 price tag on it, and he gets, 200 people that buy it. Mm-hmm. And that right there, that's like $8,000 or whatever, I think, right? Mm-hmm. Or, no, that's $5,000. Or he could slap a $100 price tag on it, and maybe less people buy it, maybe only 150 people buy it, but that's $15,000. Mm-hmm. Or if he's like super crazy, what he could do is slap a $1,000 price tag on it, and maybe only 20 people buy it, but that's $20,000. Mm-hmm. But what you can also do, if you're very clever and if you're a good marketer at that point, is you have a very low introductory offer, and then you have the upsells. So you have the $25 offer that you get most of the people to buy. Mm-hmm. And then after that, you take them to a $100 offer. And then after that, you take them to a $1,000 offer. And, only like 1% will buy that $1,000 offer, but that'll add $3,000 onto your bottom line. Mm-hmm. And so just having multiple product offerings, because a lot of people start out and they start the wrong way on building a funnel. They start out by creating a very low ticket front end offer. They say, you know what, I'm going to make this ebook, I'm going to sell it for $10, and then later on I'm going to make a course, I'm going to sell it for $100, and then later on I'm going to make a course and I'm going to sell it for $500, then later on I'm going to offer coaching for $3,000 a month. Mm-hmm. But really, the back end is where you're going to make the money. So start off pitching that $3,000 a month thing, but start really small with it. Start with something where you can actually get demonstrable results, mm-hmm. and then start very small with that, like $5, and then you scale that up until you have multiple people giving you thousands of dollars a month. Mm-hmm. If you have 5 people giving you $3,000 a month, you've got $15,000 coming in every month. Right. Then you can focus on building that out into this whole system with the $25 front end, the $100 upsell, the $500 upsell, all the way up to the $3,000 a month thing. Mm-hmm.
And for the listeners, you heard him use the word funnel. So if you have started to look into your internet marketing, you're looking to build a business, these are what they call sales funnels. So literally, if you picture a funnel, they talk about, like Jon said, you've got your $5, that wide range, and then it continues to funnel down into your premium, top-notch, highest consumers. And that's what you'll hear many, many times. Because I remember hearing that term when I started out and having no idea. I was like, oh, sales funnels and squeeze pages, and I have no idea what they're talking about. So that's very interesting, and I'm glad I'm doing this interview now, because I'm planning on launching some of my first products. So I'm like taking notes, and I'm like, and then publish that. All right. So Jon, I typically will keep these interviews between an hour and a half, hour 45. So we're coming up right on an hour and a half. So I do want to close out your story and also get to some of these copywriting open loop tricks that you've left us with the open loop from the beginning. So I did not forget. So you've arrived at this point where, and in just a few months, which I think, dude, talking to you, I've asked dozens, maybe hundreds of people about their story, their life. That's one of the things I love to do, and that's why I love doing this show. And you have honestly lived more and put more into 23 years than most people will in their whole lives. So I am very excited to see the next steps and what's coming for you, because this is amazing stuff, and I think you're just such a great role model for the audience that I'm trying to touch, and for me too, dude. You're inspiring the hell out of me. So this is amazing stuff. So I just wanted to call that out real quick. But yeah, let's dive more into the open look, the copywriting tricks, and some of that psychology kind of ninjaing that you're privy to that most people are not.
Absolutely, yeah, and thank you very much for that, by the way. That's my goal, is to do more and before I'm 30 than most people do their entire lives, and then to show others how to do the same.
Well, dude, that's me too. So you're inspiring me to inspire more. So there, you're just nailing it. You're crushing it.
Ripples of positivity, baby.
There it is.
So copywriting. It's pretty much the most valuable skill you can possibly learn, and you don't necessarily need to become a copywriter if you learn it. You should be learning copywriting if you want to sell anything without doing it face to face.
Oh, and John, just to pause you for 1 sec, can you please explain what copywriting is? Because I remember I heard about this when I started reading all these books, and I thought it was like copywriting a product, so I didn't really understand. So could you please explain to the listeners what that's all about?
Yeah, I always forget that I do this. I just talk about copywriting, and then people are like, wait, so you do stuff with patents?
Right, exactly.
No, I sell shit online.
There you go, guys. That's what it is. Good night. No, all right.
So copywriting is the art and the science of crafting sales messages for a particular product with a particular audience. So it's essentially, there's a couple different types of writing online. There's crap, which no one really reads, which is the people who are just kind of ranting or whatever, and they're just blowing hot air. Mm-hmm. And then there's content. Now, content is very helpful. It's useful. It educates you about something. It teaches you stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's copy. And copy is the invitation that comes at the end of the education. So if I give you something, if I send a Facebook ad out, let's say, and it sends people to a page where it says, hey, get my free ebook, The 7 Deadly Mistakes you always will make when you're trying to lose 100 pounds. Mm-hmm. And how to overcome them in just 30 days. Then people are and it says, enter your name and email address below. Now that's copywriting right there. Mm-hmm. Then when they actually get the lead magnet, that's what the book is called. It's a magnet that attracts leads. Mm-hmm. Then that can be written as either content, so it can be just mostly 99% helpful stuff, or it can be written more as copy, where it's basically just a long sales letter. But then everything from that point on, when you're trying to sell something, I guess the best way to put it is, if there's a button you want people to click or an action you want people to take, then you need to be writing copy, not content.
Right. And I'm sorry, you're educating me as well. I'm not saying like I knew all this. No, it's bullshit. Sometimes I'll catch myself doing that, and I always call myself, because being on the show, I'm like, I want to be genuine and real, and it's like, and there's so much that I'm learning like for the first time going through, so I don't want to be like, right, of course, exactly. That's what I would have said. But it's but I was going to say it's the process of writing sales copy, and so when you hear copywriting, there's often that distinction. So I wanted to call that out, because it was something that I absolutely did not understand. And I was reading a book where they just kept referencing it, and I'm like, I'd love to know what the hell they're talking about, because this guy seems to be doing very well doing it, and I have no idea what he's doing. So.
Right. So the top sales copy writers on the planet, guys like Dan Kennedy, John Carlton, mm-hmm. These guys, Gary Bensavenga, etc. They can earn, Dan Kennedy, I know, he gets $50,000 to $150,000 for writing a couple letters for people. Wow. Plus royalties. So plus he'll get on top of that, 5% of total gross sales or something. Wow. And he still has people who use him multiple times despite his fees. It's just, this skill will make you a god if you can master it. Mm-hmm. And you'll be able to sell. You don't have to sell stuff for other people. You don't have to sell anything spammy, scammy, or weird, or unethical, or whatever. You can sell your own product, which is something that you create, that you believe in, that you know will help people. And it's just learning how to do that in a very effective way, so that you touch on, the real core human drives of why people actually buy things, and kind of hit those psychological triggers that will get them just where they feel like they need your product, and they feel like they really want it, and they feel like it's something that they can absolutely get right now. And you can abuse this. Right. You can totally abuse this, but what I always recommend is, use your powers for good. Like, if you can accomplish a lot just through your words, like, don't use it just for some small egotistical thing like making a few $1 million, because really you're going to end up at the end of your life alone on your yacht with no friends or family, and not having made an impact on the world. Right. And you won't feel like you lived, like you loved, or like you mattered. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And but before we get into the tips and tricks, do you have any books
or resources? Like, who do you learn from? So you said Dan Kennedy and some of these other guys, but are there any books in particular that you recommend if for someone who wants to, like, what's a great one to get started with for copywriting?
I'm sitting right now in my room, and I am literally looking at my book pile. I don't have a shelf. I just have a pile.
It's easier to travel without shelves.
There's about 50, maybe 60 books there. I don't know, 40, 50, 60. I should probably count. But they're all great. I mean, tested advertising methods, John Caples, the Adweek Copywriter's Handbook by Joe Sugarman, No BS Direct Marketing by Dan Kennedy, the Robert Collier Letter Book. I actually haven't read that one yet, so I can't personally recommend it, but I've heard amazing things about it, and it's next on my list after a different book.
And John, I want to pause you right there, because now for everyone who's just like, oh, I just got to learn copy, read one or two things, and then I can go make $1 million. If you notice, he said there's about 40 or 50 books. So anyone who wants to get exceptional at any skill is doing the work. I don't care whether it's physical, mental, emotional, mastering that skill. You learn from the best that exist. You learn from the people who contradict them. Like, what John is doing is immersing himself in that world so that every sale he makes, every additional step he takes, he's constantly learning and growing, so he never plateaus. He never reaches a point where he's like, ooh, I don't know if I can really hit that next mark. When you're constantly growing, you're not afraid to step up into that new level of price, of challenge, because you're like, you know what, I'm constantly preparing and growing. I'm constantly reinventing myself so I can always achieve these new levels. I mean, I think that's a huge component of life. So when you said 40-50, I was like, perfect. I was like, that is a great point for him to share with us right there.
So, and let me ask you something, because a lot of people think, oh, if I can just get the right book or get the right information, then this is going to be a breeze. So could you learn a language, or maybe a better example is, could you learn to play the piano just by reading a book about it?
I like how you're turning the interview around on me. I firmly believe that with any education, there needs to be action. You need to try, you need to apply, because the example I use, and I love that you're bringing this up, the example I use is, I could believe that I can dunk a basketball all I want. I could read every book, watch every YouTube tutorial, but until I go out and actually doing some jumping exercises to get my white boy Irish ass off the ground, I'll never be able to do it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you can read everything about swimming, but you'll never be able to swim unless you actually get in the water. So with copywriting, it's the same thing. And when you learn to play piano, you don't start off like playing your own songs, right?
Right.
Like, you learn songs written by the masters, and you practice them, and your fingers absorb the movements, your fingers absorb the melodies, the harmonies, the different interplays between the notes. Your fingers absorb the rhythm, and your brain absorbs it, and you learn to play the piano through playing songs that were written by Beethoven, by Mozart, by Bach, by Chopin, by all these amazing piano players from the past. Now, wouldn't it make sense that would also be a pretty good way to learn something else, like, I don't know, say copywriting?
That's a random example from nowhere, but yes, I see where you're going.
So that is the secret to my success. That is the secret to me right now charging people multiple $1,000s to write a single sales page for them, is this course called Copy Hour, which I signed up for. And what they do is they actually email me a list, they email me every day a sales page, or a opt-in page, or an email, or a video, or something that is from a funnel that was known to produce very high results. So I'm reading stuff like from the 1920s, from the 1950s, all the way through the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, up to the present day. And I know that these things sold a ton of product. Like, overall, the combined worth of the product sold within these letters is probably over $1 billion. It's just huge. And what I do is I sit down every day. So I get this email, and I sit down and I take a pen and a paper, and I hand copy it. I write out the exact words that I'm seeing on the screen. And by doing that, what I'm doing is I'm internalizing the persuasive patterns. I'm learning about things like risk reversal, like psychological triggers, like making an offer, like being a friendly person, like using different vernacular, like using power words. I'm learning about all that by actually doing it. And so that's why when I sit down to write, I don't sit down at my computer. I sit down with a pen and a paper, and I write my sales pages by hand. And then afterwards, then I'll go through and I'll type them up.
And what's really interesting about that point as well, and I think is another key thing, is for all of the listeners. So say you want to start copywriting, or you want to start getting good at any skill, language learning, any of those things. What Jon mentioned is he's learning from the greats. He is taking and pulling from the best of the best. He's learning their rhythms, their patterns. And like he said, like a musician, I love parallels and connecting, martial arts and music and dance. It's like all of these things have these beautiful correlations. But what he's doing is learning from the best so that he can learn their rhythms and then create his own. Because the best ones had this amazing impact. They sold, they touched people's lives. And so he's learning how they did it so that he can recreate it in his own way. And so something that is very, very important is about your selection of your mentors, your coaches, and your resources. Because there's a lot of, as he said, a lot of crap out there. There's a lot of people that I could literally go write a blog post, right? I could start a blog called How to Make Money right now if I had the URL, and just write nonsense and just total lies. And if that's your first search and you don't have any validation or any accreditation from other people, other sources that you respect and know well, you could very well be taking bad advice or learning the wrong way or ways that don't really work. So be very selective. And like Jon said, he has 40 or 50 books. So there are a lot of great coaches out there. And there are a lot of great types of content for you to absorb, but be very careful because your time and your energy are crucially important for your success. So be sure that you're selecting the right types of inputs for you to grow. So now, Jon, all right. So we're getting close to time here, and I have two questions that I close my interviews out with. But before we get that, can we get one or two more of these open loop mind voodoo things? Because these fascinate me.
One more open loop from what would you like to know?
What's one more of those types of sales copy techniques, like an open loop, that people don't even see it happening, but it's psychologically affecting them and causing them to continue reading or to be persuaded to buy.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I actually have two.
Perfect.
Let me give you two really interesting ones. The first one's very simple, very basic. But it's a very effective trick, and it's a very effective tactic, and it's something that everyone already kind of knows about, but a lot of people fail to do this in their copy and fail to do it to the extreme, which is possible. So this is risk reversal. So essentially, in any sales transaction, when I'm trying to sell you something, there's a risk involved for you. If you're going to give me my money, your money, without seeing it, look, I'm saying my money because I'm already assuming ownership. It's like, yeah, give me my money.
Guys, my wallet is empty now. I didn't even know what happened.
That's some ninja shit right there.
Yeah.
So when they're about to give you money, then there's a big risk involved there, and there's this fear, and that's one of the things you have to help people overcome. So let me give you my definition of selling really fast, and I didn't come up with this. This actually came from Dan Sullivan.
Yep.
And Dan Sullivan said that selling is getting someone intellectually engaged in a future result that's good for them so that they emotionally commit to take action to achieve that result.
And for everyone listening, if you love quotes and like catchy sayings and things that help spur you to action, Dan Sullivan is a master coach. His stuff, he has a TED Talk with Joe Polish called 10X Talks. Highly, highly recommend it. So yeah, please continue, man.
Yeah, that's actually who I heard about that quote first from was Joe Polish. Very, very intelligent guy and very, very intelligent quote, because the key word in there, the key phrase is getting someone to intellectually engage in a future result that's good for them.
Right,
so
right.
You want to be selling something that's an actual, helping someone actually get from point A to point B, not saying you're going to take them from point A to point Z and then really dumping them around point C. Like, that's just shitty.
Right.
So risk reversal is very important. because risk reversal is basically saying to someone, hey, look, I understand you don't trust me, you don't necessarily know me yet. Depending on what point they are in their relationship with you, you have to always be aware of that. Like, what point is someone at? You can't start pitching them right off the bat with a $1,000 product, because they're not going to trust you enough until you build that up.
Right.
And so risk reversal is basically saying to someone, you know what? If you don't like it after 30 days, I'll give you 100% of your money back. But you can make that even stronger. You say this, like, this is actually what the Copy Hour sales page does, is on that sales page, I love that sales page. If you get a chance, I'll send you a link after this, just go read it, because it is beautifully written, and you'll learn a lot just by reading the page. And
I'll include that in the show notes for everyone, so we can all share in that wonderful journey and joy. So, yep.
Beautiful. Yeah, you'll probably end up buying the course just by reading the sales page. So just to warn you, it's worth it though. You'll be selling so many of your language books, you won't even believe it. But
awesome.
So with this trick, what you can do that makes it so much stronger than saying, I'll give you 100% of your money back. You say, you know what? If you follow my system for 30 days or 60 days and you don't get the result that I say you're going to get, and you can show me proof that you followed my system and it didn't work for you, I'll give you 200% of your money back. That's right. You give me $150, and if it doesn't work for you, you get $300. So worst case scenario, you just wasted a few days of your life to earn $150. And that just completely eliminates so much of that fear, because it's like, oh, wow, okay, this is really serious. So I do that with my copy. I say, to people, if it doesn't convert at higher than what you have currently, then I'll give you 110% of your money back, because working with me is always profitable.
And Jon, correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I've heard about reading about this type of sales tactic, people are like, oh, well, what about those people that are just going to come and get the returns and whatever? And it's like, from what I understand, the returns tend to go down, and it's like almost just doesn't really happen where you're getting people that are willing to invest the time to get the return. Like, is that what you found?
Yeah, and there are people who are out there like that, but you can do other things to really kind of keep them away and repulse them. One of the copywriters I really like and respect, and I've been listening to his show a lot recently, is Ben Settle.
Okay.
And he focuses on email copywriting, and he talks more about the law of repulsion rather than the law of attraction.
That's interesting.
He essentially says, once you get to a certain point that you've got traffic, you've got clients, you've got this, blah, 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 you want to be putting things in your copy and in your marketing that will repulse the people you don't want to work with. And the easiest way, essentially, to define what something is to say what it's not. Like light. Can you define light without darkness?
Interesting.
So if you can define exactly what you don't want to work with, like when I say I don't want to work with someone who doesn't understand business, I don't want to work with someone who's not willing to put in the time and effort to get the results that I know that I can deliver. I don't want to work with someone who's going to take my copy and pick it apart and say, I don't like this part, and can we take this out, and it's too salesy. I don't want to work with those people. It's just like, if that's you, just peace, like go spend your money somewhere else. And that really works. It's an effective thing. And so you can repulse those people who are just kind of looking for a way to scam you through other parts of your marketing. And then, yeah, if it's the right message, the right media, the right person at the right time, and you throw in that 200% money back guarantee, oh yeah, they're going to love you for it. They're going to be like, wow, he really believes in his stuff.
Right. Yeah, that's a credibility indicator for you, because if you're doing well in your business and you're giving that offer, it's like people are like, well, I mean, he's got to be doing great work, because he has this offer and he'd be losing money if he wasn't doing great work. So
exactly.
That's fascinating. Okay, and so what is the second technique, the second ninja voodoo or mind trick?
So this is actually a very interesting one, and I first learned about this in a behavioral economics course when we read the book Predictably Irrational by Dan Ariely.
Okay.
And an excellent book. And he basically goes into why economics was wrong. about a lot of things. Why classic economics was.
Okay, I probably love his book then.
Oh my God, yeah. That and Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, like, they won a Nobel Prize for that book, even in economics, even though they were psychologists. It's really interesting, yeah. So the Economist, the magazine, actually did this study, and this is what Dan Ariely talks about, predictably irrational. And the Economist offered people, you can get the print version of the magazine, and it's like, I think it was $60 for the year.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can get the online version of the magazine, and it's $30 per year.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can get both, and it's $60 per year.
Okay.
So what did people end up doing, right? People ended up buying more because they get what they perceive as being twice the value, even though it's no extra cost to the economist, right?
Right.
To give people access, like, it's a zero marginal cost product to give them access to the online thing, except for, some slight load on the server or whatever.
Right.
But and then, so instead of, like, if you're a schmuck who's sitting there and you're like, you know what, I'm just going to buy the online version, then you see, wait, I can get the print and the online for the same price as the print?
Mm-hmm.
Then it just kind of in your mind, you just go, oh, well, I'm
It'd be
just gonna do
stupid
that.
not to. Yeah, I mean, I'm saving money. Like, I'm getting both.
It's really funny, though, seeing this in action with some info products, like by Russell Brunson, who's a big info marketer.
Mm-hmm.
What he'll do, he has this book called 108 Split Test Winners, and you can buy it. It's free, actually. You just pay the shipping, and then he ships it to you.
Mm-hmm.
And in this book, he shows some of his sales funnels, and it's really interesting seeing these split tests. But they're testing price. And so what he would do is he would say, you can get the digital version or the physical version. And the digital version is $80, and the physical version is $180, or you can get both, and it's $160. And so that immediately, it's just like, wait, I can get both for less than the cost of the physical version?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, I'm totally doing that. And it just kind of, it really sways people towards purchasing a larger package, which, if that's something that you're really providing good value with, then that's always what you want to do. If you're standing at the edge of the desert, I love this example. A lot of people say, oh, you're trying to get people to buy more, you're just a greedy pig, oh, blah, 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 capitalism is bad. But if you're standing at the edge of the desert and you're selling water, and all you have is these little, there's little bottles of water that they get to school kids?
Like little tiny baby ones. Yeah.
The maybe 8-ounce things or whatever, they're just junk.
Yeah.
And you're just like, you know what? Yeah, I'm just going to sell these. These are $3. These are $3. And everyone coming out of the desert is like, oh my God, give me like 10 of these. And you can go, and then one day you're like, wait, these people really need more water than this. So you go and buy some gallon jugs, and you sell those for $12.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's like, you're providing a better service. You're providing more value to the customer. You're charging a higher price, yeah. But if you really are, if your intention is really to get the intended effect, the intended result, then you're absolutely doing them a disservice by not selling them as much as possible.
Right. I learned that lesson from Joe Polish at a conference that I went to just last year. And it's just so interesting because it's like, if you have the solution to someone's problem and you're not sharing it with the world and selling it because you're too lazy to put it together. Exactly. It's like you're holding back this value. Like, if you, and we're inundated with the diet secret and the way to make money and the way to get girls. And it's like, we're inundated with that. But if you truly have a product that you believe in and a message and something that you've created that can bring people that value, like, for everyone listening, like, I'm a single guy too. So it's like, imagine somebody came to you and said, I 100% guarantee I can get you a date with the girl of your dreams for $50, and it's like, you're like, but the girl of my dreams, guarantee, and it's like, all of a sudden there's a different mentality about spending that money. And if he has 100 people that can validate it and 2 of your buddies did it, it's like, wow, oh my God, there's all this social proof and this true credibility is established. So it's amazing. Dude, this stuff is fascinating. We could talk about this for hours, and I think I'm going to have to bring you back on because we could talk about copywriting, about the psychology behind it, philosophy. So if you're willing, I think we'll have to do some other episodes. But I think now would be a good time to do the 2 closeout questions. So you cool with that?
Yeah, let's close this out.
All right, man. So the first question is a new one. This is one my dad recommended, and I was like, that's a great idea. So, because many times what we're talking about on the show are the challenges the kids face and kind of the negative side of, the corporate world, which honestly, it's like right now I'm in a corporate job that is a great fit for me and helps me to build my business, and I get to travel. So it's not like corporate America is all evil. It's like some situations, sure, but you can always find good things out there if you're willing to work. And like we've talked about, understand your self-worth and sell yourself, sales copy, guys. You can make amazing things happen. So the question is, what is the value that you believe that the millennials, that our generation brings to the world and brings to the workforce?
What is the value that we collectively bring to the workforce? I'd say a fresh take. Mm-hmm. We are pretty much the first generation that grew up with the internet readily available. Mm-hmm. And with things like Wikipedia out there where, false claims are kind of shot down. And I think we hold ourselves to a lot higher standards. Like, there's this disdain in our generation for anything that is hypey, that is bullshit. Like, Fox News doesn't quite fly with us. We're like, that is not quite what's going on. And then the other side is also not quite what's going on. So I think we see through a lot of the misinformation that's out there. Mm-hmm. And, it's really interesting because every once in a while on Facebook, you'll see this like article that goes viral. That's like, the top 7 ways that there's lead in everything or something, and the government's trying to poison you. And then like 2 days later, those same people will be sharing another article that says, actually, the government isn't trying to poison you. Here's what happened. Yeah. And it's like, we have this kind of a culture of accountability where people are held accountable to their claims. And it's really shifting the overall power in the marketplace away from people who are selling. Because if you think about this, if you go back 150, 200 years, and I'm selling you something, you can't Google it. You can't check Yelp. You can't go online and read some blogs and some forums about it. Mm-hmm. You can't see video testimonials of other customers who are saying it's the most amazing thing ever. All you have to go off of is my word. And that just really creates this festering ground where con men can go around and prey on the weak and the innocent and take away their money and just do whatever they want with it. Mm-hmm. And most of the time they would kind of get away with it. And so that's kind of been the norm for a lot of humanity. But what we're living through right now is a very dramatic shift in the way that we process and interpret information and claims. Mm-hmm. And people will fact check things, so that's why you can't really get away with being a liar for very long, at least.
Right.
It won't last. Mm-hmm. Like, you might make a quick buck, but you're not going to have that residual benefit that makes life worthwhile. Mm-hmm. So I think that one of the big things that we bring is a new sense of accountability and just kind of higher standards. A lot of people make fun of millennials and whatnot, and we see the possibilities too. Like, we're very open-minded to freedom. Mm-hmm. From what I've experienced. People are mostly like, yeah, actually, it's slowly becoming more of a reality that people are saying, you know what, I actually don't have to have a corporate job that sucks. I don't have to work in an office that I hate. I can work online. And, guys like Tim Ferriss and a lot of these other, Chris Guillebeau and a lot of these other big guys who are out there blogging and writing and mm-hmm. creating books and videos about, yes, you can do this, are responsible for this kind of culture shift that's going on where people are realizing that what's possible.
Right.
And this is fascinating too, because what's going to happen is right now, most of the jobs, I think it's like 62%. I read an article on BBC the other day, and it said 62% of jobs could be replaced within the next 10 years by machines, by automated
Wow.
machines. And that was really interesting to me because, if all the truck drivers stop driving trucks, if most restaurants become automated, like if you can go into McDonald's and order from a machine, yeah, McDonald's is going to love that. They can cut out the humans. Right. Totally. Mm-hmm. And it's like, what happens when those jobs are gone? Well, the people who are addicted to those jobs are going to freak out. They're going to say, oh no, our jobs are gone. And they're still not going to just kind of get the hint and start creating things. Mm-hmm. Because if you really dedicate yourself to painting and you paint for 10 years and you really get good at it, you put in your 10,000 hours, you get to mastery, you're going to be able to make a living for yourself. Same thing with writing. With writing, it can happen a lot faster if you learn to sell stuff with it. It's the same with pretty much anything, but there's a group of people out there that just don't realize that, and they're kind of addicted to this steady paycheck for minimal labor kind of lifestyle. And those people are going to be very, very upset when the machines start taking over their jobs.
And for all the listeners, if you really look at this just from a broad perspective, if you become a person who is a problem solver, and in any way, in the way that Jon has chosen to do that with copywriting, what he's really doing is solving problems. He's helping people generate sales. He's helping people generate leads to drive traffic, because all of these problems are things that people are just trying to figure out. And when Jon offers that solution, then they're willing to pay through the nose for it, because they're like, thank God, I just needed that one thing. And they get much more value back. So if you look at being a problem solver and you're willing to think outside the box and look at different perspectives, all of a sudden you become a person that will never diminish in value. Like, your skill set will never diminish in value. It is something that you can perpetually reinvent, reinvigorate, modify slightly, and grow. So love that point, man, because it's funny, because I hadn't thought of that or pictured it in that way. So I love that you brought that up. Now, the closing question that I typically give is going to be a little bit different for you, because normally I'm interviewing people who are like, some of them are still, late 20s, early 30s, and have achieved really great success or doing well in their field. And what I like to ask them is, if you could go back and talk to yourself at graduation, what advice would you give yourself? And for you, graduation was so recent, I'm gonna give it to you either way. So you could either say, what advice would you give the kids that are at graduation right now, or what would be the advice that you gave to yourself personally? Because I found that there are times where that differs between what we would tell others versus tell ourselves.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't tell myself to do anything differently. I feel every part of my journey was essential and necessary, and I learned a lot from each step of it, and I'm really grateful that I had those shitty clients, that I had those underpaying everything, and that I scaled up to where I am now, and that the sky's the limit from here. It's like wherever. So my advice to people who are graduating right now, or who are going to be graduating, is don't settle. Don't. Just don't. Like, if you feel like you're gonna be crushed, if you feel like something is a bad idea, if you feel like you're gonna get addicted to the easy money of working as a wage slave at a corporate job, just don't. Like, living in a tent or in a hammock or whatever, and learning to forage for yourself and earn your own way in this world is so much better than just surrendering yourself to something, because you don't realize how quickly time goes by. Time just slips by in an instant, especially when you're just kind of hanging out and working and earning a living. It'll pass you by, and then you know what? It'll be a year later, and that year is going to go by anyways. So you might as well use it doing something epic. Like, buy a one-way ticket somewhere, start an online business, start learning a skill. I talk a lot about copywriting. Copywriting's not for everyone. It's for anyone who kind of it thinks of themselves as a writer, thinks they have an important message to say. I feel like copy is a great way to do that. But, there are other ways of building a business for yourself. My buddy Zephan built a beautiful business in the video production industry, and he's worked on House of Cards. He's worked for the White House. He's filming like huge events that are just insane, and he's 24. I think he's 24. He might be 25 or 23. I don't know. Anyways, but he's in his 20s, just like me. My other buddy Gabe, he has a successful graphic design business. He's actually my business partner on Podcasting Press, and he has a graphic design business, and he's 25, and he's bringing in like 5 figures a month with his graphic design business.
Wow.
And it's amazing. Like, there's so many people that I could just keep spewing off names, and I can think of like 17-year-old people that I know of who are just crushing it, who are making like 5-6 figures a month. Like, I know this kid. He was in high school, actually. I met him last summer, and he's in high school, and he's earning thousands of dollars online, and he's just like, he's in high school. He's just playing around and just doing stuff for people, but he just has some skills and he's selling them, and he just got started. But the key is to take action. And the key is to take action now. Like, don't wait another day. Go to Fiverr. It's free to set up a profile. Set something up. Try selling some shit. If it doesn't work, pivot. If it doesn't work, pivot. If it doesn't work, pivot. Just always keep your focus on solving a specific problem for a specific set of people. And then when you find that specific set of people who are willing to pay you for that specific problem you're solving, then start scaling up. Then start charging more, then build it out, and you can make it into a lifestyle. And the other piece of advice that I would give you is don't wait for passion, because passion is bullshit. Don't follow your passion. There's this whole saying out there that's like, oh, just follow your passion and the money will come. I say bullshit, okay? Choose something where the money is going to come and the passion will follow. Like, when I started out with copywriting, I wasn't super psyched about it. I wasn't like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. Now I'm at a point where I won't shut up about it. My poor girlfriend has to listen to me talk about marketing shit all day long because I'm just so excited by where I'm going. I'm reading books constantly. I have like an addiction to buying books right now. I sit down, I write for an hour and a half every day, just hand copying these sales letters. And that's before I even start working on my work for my clients. When I get something with a client, I obsess over every detail of it. I go through the whole thing. I read it out loud. I'll retype it again. I'll make sure that it sounds good. I'll take out any funny sounding bits, and I'm getting damn good at it. And that's because, and I'm getting passionate about it. And you can hear the passion right now in my voice. I hope this can convey quite well through this microphone. And that came as a result of me working, of me dedicating myself, and of me getting started. So get started.
See, I love that, man. And I actually, right before you, like, wow, I was like, as soon as he's done, I'm going to be like, listen to the passion in his voice, because that is the type of passion that everyone listening to this show can be speaking with and talking about what they're doing every day of their life. To his point, start today. We are so, I'm so guilty of this. There's so many times where I said, I'm going to start my book. I'm going to start my podcast. I'm going to start my business. And it took me a week, 2 weeks. And I'm like, why am I waiting? You know, I just went and watched Family Guy or played Angry Birds. It's like, why not start to create that amazing life today? Why not create the passion? Why not start working in the things that you want right now? Like, literally after this call, start writing down ideas. I'm sorry, this podcast, start writing down ideas, start exploring, because whatever gives you this type of excitement, this type of energy where you're just like, oh my God, I can barely contain myself. Like, you should feel like a little kid who sees the ice cream truck coming. That should be like every day where it's just like, oh my God, I am gonna get the triple fudge swirl ice cream cone and I can't wait. It's like, just picture that in your life. So, dude, I love that. I mean, I feel like you've got a speaking career in you as well. So we're gonna close out here though. This has been fantastic. I think you're a hugely inspirational guy. This is like amazing, all of the different things we covered. And again, through your self-education, dude, you've absorbed more and learned more and applied more. That's the big thing. You know, like, you hear all about the armchair professors that tell people how it works, and then there's people out doing it and living it. So you're living it. You've produced the results. You're living the lifestyle. And I guess he referenced his girlfriend, which prior to the call, he said, oh, she's out on a modeling photo shoot. And I was like, oh, the model girlfriend. That's tough life. That's traveling around, model girlfriend, you know, business where you make your hours. And okay, all right, at 23, okay. So guys, so if he's doing it, don't feel jealous. Don't look at him and go, damn it. You know, frustration. And actually,
right.
Dude, I got to give you a couple claps here, because I think the high school versions of me and you are celebrating, like, you can do it. You can do it. We can turn things around, man. Yeah. So, but for everyone listening, there's so often where we hear about somebody take a trip or open a business, and we're like, God, what and we just get these emotions. You can be that person too, living and creating your own thing. Use it as motivation and fuel, not as a drain or a detraction. So, Jon, we're going to close out for today. Thank you so much for doing this, man. It was great to meet you and get to know you and hear your story.
Likewise.
Thanks, dude. Hey, we'll be talking more.
Yes, sir.
So I want to help people promote their stuff, and I'm sure after listening to this, there's going to be people that want to learn more about you. So where are the best places that people can go to find out more about Jon Bowes?
Just check out my blog, my movement at adventupreneur.com. And that's ADVENTUPRENEUR.
Perfect. And so, yeah, guys, if you just start typing Adventup and you just get to the P, it'll pop up. It comes right up on Google. So for everyone listening, thank you so much for joining us on this show. I know it was a long episode, but there was so much good stuff, I just didn't want to stop it. So again, one of the beauties of having your own show. And we talked about a horror business that we're going to start. It's beautiful.
Wonderful.
So, and we closed loops, we opened them, and we left some hanging, because now you're going to Adventupreneur and you're wondering what you're going to find. See, I'm learning. So for everyone that listened today, thank you so much for being a part of the show. As always, you can go to overcominggraduation.com to subscribe to the email list and see a full list of every episode with all of the show notes as well. If you're listening to this on iTunes or on Stitcher, you can also click into the app, click on the episode, and you'll see a full list of the show notes with links to Jon's webpage as well as references that were addressed during the show. If you want to learn more about Overcoming Graduation, you can stay connected to this group and the OCG community by checking out the Facebook page, the Instagram page, as well as the Twitter page. And finally, if you'd like to contact me directly, if you have recommendations for interviewees for the show, if you have any requests for me as a speaker, or interested in learning more about the OCG community, please feel free to reach out to me at brian@overcominggraduation.com. So, Jon, if you hang out for just a second after the call. Listeners, that's it for you today. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I had a blast. And we'll be checking in again with you guys real soon. So have a great night.